let's start today's session with the presentation of Marina. Marina, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Mayeta. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to talk about the impact of COVID-19 on Africa, and also make a link to labor mobility and the future of work. As we all already know, COVID-19 is affecting the whole world, also including Africa. And when it comes to the African continent, the countries have responded differently. At this stage, with regards to the health impacts on the African countries, I think we are still speculating a lot. Everyone is observing. However, we see that the African countries have been, let's say, proactive in taking measures and responding really differently. Some factors so far, we see that the impact is not as huge yet when it comes to the health impact in Africa compared to the rest of the world. Speculation around the fact that Africa's population is very young, around the chloroquine used by most African people to protect themselves from malaria or to cure malaria. So it's something to observe, keep observing the coming weeks. We do see also similarities if I have to focus on the countries where we are going to implement the match project you will hear about shortly. Nigeria and Senegal. When it comes to Nigeria, where the country is leveraging on lessons learned from Ebola, where you see that authorities are doing their best to let's say, to separate the response of the coronavirus from the provision of regular health care. The people showing symptoms or diagnosed by the virus are treated in specialized clinics. In this way, a regular healthcare can also still continue. We see the same also in Senegal, where they have, let's say, specific health centers to take care of coronavirus patients. The two countries have something in common, that is in the fundraising to support the economic impact on their countries. We've seen also in Nigeria that the billionaires of the country has also contributed to the funds of the government to support the country to tackle coronavirus impact. In Senegal, same thing, IMF, next to the country's fund, IMF has given Senegal $442 million US to help Senegal to support their efforts to tackle the economic consequences of COVID-19. We also notice in Senegal support of the government to 125,000 households to provide them with some income the coming 3 to 4 months, if my information is correct. And also for both countries, their fund targets the strengthening of a health system to support private sector in maintaining jobs and increase supply of medical products. COVID-19, we can talk about the impact or maybe the challenges, but it could also be an opportunity for the continent, where this crisis can lead to a wake-up call of African governments to put in place a financial mechanism to withstand shocks and create a push towards further catering to its own needs by developing not only a strong healthcare sector, but also developing manufacturing plants to make its own masks, medicines, developing other important sectors such as agriculture and other sectors. If you followed the news lately, the past 2 days, I think 2 days ago, the African Union stood up because even African leaders have a lot of work to do. They will not do this alone. They will do this with their international partners. We've seen that the chairperson of the African Union, President Ramaphosa, recently appointed 4 special envoys to mobilize international support for Africa's efforts to address economic challenge African countries will face as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And these special envoys will also work with various regional task force, as also working with the national task force per country. The expectation is that this way they will also work on, let's say, contextualize the support that will be provided to the countries on the continent. COVID-19 pandemic also has serious implication for labor and employment. For instance, it results to layoff for countries, for companies suffering from the consequences, the reduction in wages, in working hours. But while this virus is also putting a restriction in the freedom of movements of everyone across the world, it has also accelerated the digital transformation of the economy to move towards remote working, telehealth, remote learning, hosting virtual events just like this webinar. So some companies may also tackle in this as an opportunity, maybe as a temporarily or short-term solution. The chances are high also that in some form they will stay and will shape the future of job or the future of work, the future of work culture. During the session, we're going to also listen to Ernesto from Tunga, who I think his company is a successful example that shows case how remote software developers in Africa can deploy flexibly and rapidly to address companies' IT needs. Therefore, we could see the COVID-19 as a catalyst to bring the evolution of work anywhere to the next level in ways that improve opportunities to collaborate, to think, to create, and connect productively. And we're moving towards a borderless recruitment, a borderless employment opportunity. At the same time, we must not forget that the pressing needs and structural shortage that were already present in many European countries during the pre-COVID-19 era due to demographic and socio-economic developments such as aging population, skill mismatch, will continue to persist and constrain companies' productivity and the adoption of innovative technologies, innovative solutions, innovation in also in the recruitment of talents they need. In the Netherlands specifically, some of these bottlenecks vacancies are noticed in the health, education, ICT, engineering, and technical sector jobs. And one way to close the gap between untapped labor and unfulfilled jobs is to improve the process for allowing workers to travel more freely across borders to gain productive employment. In other words, facilitating talent mobility. At the moment, we could see maybe consider remote work as a low-hanging fruit. And we think that the match program could support Dutch companies in finding these talents. And we see Africa as an interesting partner to tackle the needs within the job market in the Netherlands for the coming periods. And I look forward to the discussion later on during this webinar, the intervention from the various speakers. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Marina, for the very insightful presentation. It's very hopeful to hear that African countries have responded swiftly and taken drastic measures to contain the virus. And the topic of labor mobility is also at the core, as Marina says, of the MATCH project, which will be presented by Maya. So Maya, the floor is now all yours.
Wonderful. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us from your home offices and living rooms and otherwise across the country and possibly further afield. My name is Maya Mackenzie, and I am the focal point for the MATCH project in the Netherlands. As 𝖬𝗠𝗫 has kindly introduced, this project is implemented in 4 EU member states and 2 African states, so 6 in total. IOM, International Organization for Migration, is the lead agency with offices in each of these 6 countries who are leading implementation. And I'll go into further details now. I have a 10-minute time slot, and I'm aware we're running a little bit behind time. If you have any questions, do put them in the statement for the question and answers, and I will try to speak slowly as well. So before I go into the activities of the MATCH project, I will quickly just cover some basics, which may have not already been mentioned. So you can see here the 6 countries, 4 of which are based in the EU. Based on the flag, you can see here it is funded by the European Commission, specifically the AMIF fund. And as mentioned, IOM is leading this project in each of the 6 countries. And we are supported regionally in the EU by Euro chambers. And in each of the European countries, we have project partners who are supporting us significantly with project activities. And you have already met Marina, Gunnar, and 𝖬𝗠𝗫 from our Dutch partner, NABC. And we have support from various other unofficial partners and stakeholders who also play a very critical role. The project was launched in the pre-Corona era, for us at least, in a practical sense, January 2020, and we are funded for 3 years, so a duration of 36 months. The project is a demand-driven project. It was born out of employers' needs for more and fresh talent to meet labor shortages in the EU, specifically in IT, tech, innovation, digitalization sectors. Now that we are facing new circumstances because of the pandemic, we are having to shift gears, much like everybody else. And so this is actually a webinar that was originally supposed to be a face-to-face meeting with you all. It is now going to be a set of webinars. This is the first one. We hope that you can tune in for the future webinars with details to be shared at a later date. And hopefully in the near future, we'll have the opportunity to meet with you in person. But thank goodness for the internet and the ability to shift everything online. What that does mean is that project activities are affected slightly. We do have to engage more with employers in the Netherlands to understand how we can adjust the activities, how we can adjust the MATCH project to actually meet its needs and to support employers best, to address the concerns and the needs of employers under these new circumstances. So we're really grateful for this opportunity to engage with you in the question and answer session at the end, and no doubt we'll be in touch in the future on a more bilateral basis to see how we can best support you with this project. The goals of the MATCH project, well, ultimately is to promote existing legal pathways for labor mobility, which support economic growth and development. And how do we do that? A list of sub-goals here through the facilitation of a circular labor mobility scheme from the 2 countries in Africa to the 4 countries in Europe. We are upscaling young graduates' skills and increasing their employability through work placements of a duration between 1 and 2 years, roughly. We are bringing greater awareness to the existing and potential skills of graduates from Nigeria and Senegal, possibly an untapped, unknown source of talent and skills for the Dutch market. We're addressing EU labor market shortages, sustainable, reliable sources of talent. And I think sustainable is quite a key word to mention here. And this project is not only based on the activity of recruitment, it is not solely a recruitment-based project. It does strive to support development, specifically the 5 Sustainable Development Goals listed here. So this form of development I'll speak about in the next slide, but we do this through skills development and knowledge sharing for the candidates who are graduating and coming from Nigeria and Senegal, but also for employers who will have the opportunity to engage with each other across the region, but also to facilitate intercontinental networking with institutions and talent sources in Africa. And as I mentioned, the keyword here is sustainability. We're looking to optimize existing legal frameworks, existing talent pools, existing networks for mutual gain. So we're doing this in a way that we can build sustainability in the long term and hopefully scalability of the circular migration model, perhaps expanding into other sectors of the Dutch economy or tapping into other sources of talent within Africa. I won't read these quotes to you. You can do that in your own time if you wish, but I thought it was important to highlight that in early March this year, the European Commission outlined five key areas of a new framework, a new roadmap for partnership with Africa. I will read the 5 points to you. So this is in green transition, digital transformation, sustainable growth and jobs, peace and governance, and migration and mobility. So the Netherlands, the Dutch government recognizes, and they estimated earlier this year that there are 265,000 open vacancies that are not being fulfilled by local talent. And the European Commission recognizes this as well. So they are launching a roadmap with these 5 thematic areas to solidify and strengthen partnerships between actors in Europe and actors in Africa. And I think this really paves a very favorable path for Match, because there are some key synergies here, specifically with the efforts to promote skills and potential. And you can see in these quotes that young persons and women are specifically mentioned there. And as such, labor mobility is seen also by the European Commission in this sense as a potential solution for development and partnerships and addressing job shortages in Europe. So this really provides us with quite fertile, favorable environment to implement the Match project. I've included the URL, the link here in the slide. You'll have access to the slides to read further about this 5 thematic roadmap of the European Commission. And as I said, it was launched in the pre-corona era. So the intention of the European Commission is to have endorsement of the European Commission, European Union, and the African Union in October. That was the original plan, October this year, to put this plan into motion. So if we're optimistic, that could take place this year and provide a lot more opportunities to us. The project activities. So we are, as I said, we launched the project in January 2020, not that long ago. We are in steps 1 and 2 here, as you can see on the slide. As mentioned, we've had to adjust slightly under the circumstances, and we are conducting a significant amount of outreach and exchange with stakeholders in the Netherlands, in Nigeria, and in Senegal to ensure that our activities are still meaningful, impactful under the circumstances. We will then be screening candidates in Nigeria and Senegal based on these discussions with employers in the Netherlands based on your needs, and putting together a short list of candidates for matching. And these matched candidates will then travel to the Netherlands to fulfill work placements of a duration of between 1 to 2 years, roughly. And noting that there can be cultural barriers, but also traditionally in the tech, IT, digitalization sectors, we do see a gender imbalance. So special considerations will be made to support the participation of females from Senegal and Nigeria as well. For the Dutch component, NABC and IOM will be supporting employers, but also the candidates and the institutions where they're departing from with logistical and operational preparations. We'll be providing cultural awareness and soft skill training. This can be important, especially for employers in the Netherlands who be maybe less familiar with cultural differences between the Netherlands and Senegal, the Netherlands and Nigeria. But it is critically important for those who are traveling from Senegal and Nigeria and may not have interpersonal, intercultural experience, and maybe less familiar with workplace culture, soft skills, unspoken rules, working in a Dutch environment. During the work placement, the candidates and the host employers will have support on call from NABC and IOM to support them as needed. There will be a facilitation of cross-border networking and information exchange. At this stage, everything is online, but we do hope to have the opportunity to travel to Senegal and Nigeria and give Dutch employers the opportunity to see face-to-face the talent pools and the institutions which trained them. So this is intercontinental, but also within Europe. There's a significant amount of exchange, collection of good practices, and information exchange, sharing with employers and other institutions such as embassies, diaspora groups, universities, ministries, municipalities who are interested in this, who are interested in the sustainability, the potential, and the scalability of this model. Upon the completion of their position, their candidature in the Netherlands after 1 to 2 years, if there is the agreement that the candidate wishes to return back to their home country, we have our network in Nigeria and Senegal who will provide them with a soft landing and will support them to enter the labor market. And this then completes the circular migration model, and it is then expected that the candidate can can support their country of origin with the skills and the knowledge that they have learned from Europe to support development in their home country. During their candidacy, young persons from Senegal, Nigeria will be supported not only with their own skills development, but also to contribute to their home country remotely. And that's very flexible. It's up to them how they think the best way to contribute to their home country during their time in the Netherlands. So what's next for interested employers? I do encourage you to reach out to Meerte and myself for an initial discussion about the needs of your company, your interests. This may have changed in the last weeks and it may change again in the next few weeks. So we're trying to collect as much information as we can and really be quite flexible, treat this as very much a two-way information exchange. So do reach out to us for a discussion on how we can tailor the match project to meet your needs. We're looking for profiles and vacancies that you struggle to fill. That will really help us with the selection of candidates, the right candidates for you. We will then be able to produce an individualized plan for your company based on your employment needs. As mentioned, we hope to have opportunities for you to learn more about the talent and the skills, the available talent in Nigeria and Senegal. And I'm really glad to have the two guest speakers with us today who will be able to shine more light on this than I can. But then this will be supplemented, I hope, with opportunities to actually be in Senegal, Nigeria, and really engage on a one-to-one level with candidates there and with the institutions that support them. And lastly, after we have created an individualized plan, you've shared with us your vacancies and skill profiles and the needs of your company, we'll be able to produce a short list of highly skilled candidates for you. And it must be said that the employer in the Netherlands is making the final decision in terms of the recruitment. The recruitment is completely led by the employer in the Netherlands. However, the match project is there to support you. Maybe a question I haven't answered yet is that employers are not required to pay a fee to participate in this project. However, employers are responsible for the travel, the visa, and of course the salary of the candidates during their time in the Netherlands. I believe I have touched on everything. When we're looking at timeframes, we have needed to adjust the match project slightly under these circumstances. The original plan for this project was that we would be able to travel to Senegal with interested employers during the summer. This is very unlikely now, unfortunately. So we're pushing things, and we think that we could still recruit candidates toward the end of this year, start of next year. But I say that with some hesitation because things can change. But it is our hope that we'll be able to recruit candidates toward the end of this year. As Marina has already pointed out, we're thinking of some very creative approaches and looking at the opportunities that remote recruitment provide for us here. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. I've really had to skirt across a couple of details here. No doubt you have more questions, and I do look forward to your questions in the question and answer session. But as mentioned, we are taking a very flexible approach, a lot of information exchange on a company-to-company level. So please do reach out to us for a discussion and see how we can best help you. Thank you very much, and over to you, Mirta.
Yes, well, thank you, Maya. That was very, I think it was very clear what the project is all about, and I think it's very good to note that IOM the Netherlands and NEBC are mainly working together with the Dutch companies in finding the pre-selection of the candidates. So not really with the application process of the candidates in the two countries themselves. That will be done by the local offices as well as the employment agencies. So my colleague Guna already wrote in the chat panel. If you have any questions, please make sure to use the Q&A option. And I will now quickly move to our next speaker. I'll just announce him here, which is Cedric. So Cedric, you can take the floor and go for the screen option. You can take all the rights.
Thank you very much. Let's share my screen. Okay, now we'll be able to share it from now. So we'll be quick. I've got 10 minutes. I've got a more detailed presentation that we will be able to communicate to all the participants later on. But I wanted to highlight in some few figures and to explain how rich West Africa and Nigeria and Senegal are in terms of profiles. So just to give you a brief presentation on the size of these countries. Senegal is pretty much the same size as Netherlands. Nigeria is more than 10 times. We have 200 million people. Lagos itself, it's 26 million people. The labor force represents more than 100 million people in Nigeria. In terms of ICT population in Nigeria, we are talking about 500,000 people working on it when we do only 80,000 in Senegal compared to the Netherlands. The average age of the population is very young compared to Europe, globally speaking. So that means people are more aware about digital things, who are more keen to go into it. Every year, we have a large number of people going on the market. We are talking about graduates, so people who've been to school, been to university. We've got 200,000 in Senegal, 2 million in Nigeria. So that gives you, and it's very difficult, especially at the moment, to know the exact figures about how many people are on the market, are going on ICT, but we estimate at around 2% at the minimum. But it is ranking, you know, the 0.44% was 2 years ago. So 0.44% of the labor force was working in ICT. And today we are already at 2, maybe growing at 3, and we will reach levels of Europe very, very, very soon. There is lots of initiatives from international companies, school, local universities to develop the training of people, and especially in IT, in telecoms, and globally speaking in ICT. So this is very important to understand now that we have a large number of people who are very, very keen to learn and to grow into this ICT sector. We've got a large number of the population who are unemployed as well, who are trained but unemployed, so looking for jobs. When they cannot find jobs within, I would say, companies, local or international, they are very creative, they are very entrepreneurship. So they develop their own apps, they develop their own business. And this is very key. They're very driven, and they have to find their own jobs. So as a company, as 𝖭, we've been working 11 years now in Nigeria. We've been managing very, very various projects and ICT profiles. We recruit this kind of profile across sectors, not only for engineering or IT or telecom companies, but for banking, agro-business, logistics, FMCGs, fintech. We've got the capabilities, and we have recruited all these profiles. So for definite, these profiles are on the ground. That would be very interesting to identify the shortage of skills you could have in the Netherlands, to give you a short list or even a broad list of skills we can find in Nigeria and in Senegal. Obviously, Senegalese people, you will find French speakers, and not only English speakers like in Nigeria, but now the youngest and the ICT guys, most of them are bilingual, and they're developed in English anyway. What else we can say? That's very important to identify the skills, the shortage, and even during this COVID-19 situation, interviews of candidates can be done over videos, video calls. You were talking about remote work. This is working very, very, very well. And Senegal, Nigeria, they are big countries, large countries. So that work, this remote work, works. The communication in terms of infrastructure, in terms of IT, is growing fast. 5 years ago, we were struggling to have a Skype call. Today, we are all on Teams. I've got my team on a daily basis across Africa. We are covering 12 countries, working in 25. We talk to them on a daily basis, and that works. You address the point that with these constraints, I would say, in terms of transport, talents could work from their home country. That's absolutely doable. The logistic could be organized. And when they will come back to their home country, they can support Dutch companies who would be willing to expand on the continent. Once again, it's not only recruiting talents, it's also exporting your own know-how, your own expertise, because in the Netherlands, in Europe, so you've got a population of 17 million consumers. In Nigeria, you've got 200 million. So that gives other opportunities. We've got a virtual cycle where you can start recruiting talents that you can deliver and improve your own team, your own business into the Netherlands. But that's also an opportunity once you have trained someone to expand, whether in Nigeria and or Senegal. So as a conclusion, I haven't checked the time, and I'm very talkative, so just raise your hand as well if I'm talking too much. But be confident that you will find very, very good candidates, whether they're male or female. There's a very good female candidate. We've trained people in Ghana, in Mozambique, in Senegal, and out of them, 40% were female. And most of the time, the top 3, top 5 of the group, of the cohort, were females. So they're very good, very well educated, sometimes more mature as well than the male. Maybe don't register this, but this is important. We find this percentage of female more in Africa than in Europe sometimes. I would invite you all to recruit some African talents, because that will bring you much more than a talent. That will bring you diversities, ideas, drive, and for both sides. So you will be different and much, much stronger than your local competitors. That's it for me. If you have any question, please feel free. I will be very, very happy to share my experience and difficulties and success we had in Africa over the last 15 years.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Cedric. So it's very truly wonderful to hear the amount of talent that can be found in Nigeria and Senegal. I noticed that some people have already wrote down some questions during the Q&A, so that's very great. And I think we will address them during the Q&A after our presentation of the next speaker, Ernesto.
So my name is Ernesto, and the company that we built is called Tunga. And what we do is that we place young software developers from African countries in teams in European companies, or sometimes in US-based companies. So the developers, they work remotely from wherever they live in Africa, and they work together using remote collaboration tooling in software teams all over the world, basically. And we have a pool of 400 developers, a large part of them in Uganda and Nigeria. Our main office is in Uganda. We also have an office in Nigeria, but we have developers from, I think, almost all African countries. And the way it works is that a customer wants to work with us, who needs software development capacity. They give us a profiles of what they're looking for, basically a job profile. And then we go look in our database whether we have a match. If we have a match, then we present the profiles that match. And then the client can just have interviews and select the candidates that they want. And maybe they want to do a test, but we have, let's say, all those 400 who are in our database have already been tested. And we test on technical skills. So let's say, what software languages do they know, what software frameworks do they know, etc. But we also test on what we call soft skills. So how good are they at working together remotely? How do they communicate? How's their project management or task management skills, etc., etc. So in principle, all the developers we have in the database have already been tested. And when the client has a match, we do the interview, maybe some additional tests if the client wants that, and then they can start to work. Usually let's say the time between the client sent us the profile and the developer start work can be between 2 and 4 weeks. So we can work very quickly. And we've been doing this since 2015. So it's, let's say, it's not like we started like that from day one, but we had to learn a little bit how to make it work. And what we found is that, because the original idea is that we wanted to do a marketplace where we just say, okay, this is the developer, this is the client, okay, good luck. But now we've built a whole system around it to screen, to vet the developers, to guide the clients into working with the developers, etc. So we have elaborate onboarding that we do in the first month to 6 weeks. And then we have a continuous monitoring system in place to check whether everything is going all right. But experiences tells us that when it's going all right after 1 month, usually it's a successful collaboration. We had 90 developers working in teams for clients last year in 2019. And we're doubling our growth each year in the past years. So it's fast growing, and it's a sign, I think, that clients are very interested in African talent, and it is possible to make it work in a successful way. And I think it's because on the one hand, there's just enough talent that has, let's say, a high quality, and it's in the same time zone. We work for a large part in countries where English is the main language, so that also helps compared to, for example, Eastern Europe or India. And then I have to say, I think about 3/4 of our market is in the Netherlands, and the Netherlands is a very good fit with Nigeria in our experiences, because we always like to say that Nigeria is the Netherlands of Africa in terms of culture, because the people are very direct, and well, other people always call it rude, but we like it. We think it's direct. So especially in remote collaboration, it works very well because there's very open and transparent communication both ways. So it's very effective culture they have. It lends itself very well, I think, for this kind of collaboration. And like Cedric said, there's a lot of entrepreneurship also in Nigeria, which we like very much. And yeah, and then in terms of how do we look at different African countries, we've published a white paper on that subject. And if you like, you can send me an email and I can share the white paper with you. I will give you the executive summary right now. So if you look at Africa, then let's say there's like 15, 16 countries that have a volume of talent that is interesting enough for us, at least, to invest in it. And Nigeria is, I think, number 1 or number 2 in that list, and Senegal is on number 15. Nigeria, obviously, English is good. Senegal, it's let's say, it's certainly not bad. It's not native, but it's overall there's enough talent there that speaks English, in our experience. If you look at salary levels, they are very attractive. If you compare them to other countries like South Africa or Mauritius, which is not really in the heartland of Africa, but Kenya also much higher fees than you pay in Nigeria and Senegal. So fee-wise, it's attractive. The business climate is, of course, obviously a little bit less, well, if I can speak for Nigeria, let's say it's more difficult to do business there in general, but for us in our business, it doesn't really matter that much because our clients, they hire the talent through us, clients pay us, and we arrange everything on the African side. So it's a fairly low risk situation for the clients. Yeah, I did it a little bit in the fast mode because we were running late, but I think this is most of what I wanted to say. And if there's anything in the Q&A, then I'm happy to elaborate a little bit more.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ernesto, for your insights, and it's very good to hear how remote working is already very successful, and yeah, again, to come back to the talent of Nigeria and Senegal and the fit there is for Dutch companies, and I very much agree as well on the directness that there's some similarity there with the Netherlands and Nigeria.